Okay, Wildcat, so we're going to, journal page 59, solve rational equations. Solving rational equation steps. Step 1, multiply each term by the common denominator. Step 2, divide out common factors. Step 3, simplify. Now, in step 4, solve the equation. You have two routes. If it's quadratic, you need to set the equation in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Then factor or use the quadratic formula. Step 7, set each factor equal to 0. Step 8, check for extraneous solutions. Now in step 4, if it's linear, step 5 will be set the variables on one side equal to a number on the other side. And step 6, check for extraneous solutions. Okay, so if you would update your notes. Now your notes are updated, let's take a look at the examples. All right, now in example 1, okay, we need to multiply everything by the common denominator. So in this case, the common denominator is x, because this is divided by 1 and this is divided by 1. So to find the common denominator, simple, multiply the denominator together. Well, 1 times x times 1 is just x. So now x times x is x squared plus 8 times x, 8 or x times 8 divided by x is x, or 8x divided by x equals x times 6 is 6x. Okay, now anything divided by itself is 1, so this divides and becomes 1. Okay, now we're going to subtract 6x from both sides, so that's x squared minus 6x plus 8 equal to 0. Now at this point we're going to factor. We know two parentheses. We know x and x makes x squared. Now we need to find all the combinations that multiply to give you 8 and combine to be negative 6. So we know that negative 1 times negative 8 is negative 8. Negative 2 times negative 4 is, positive 8. Positive 8. Negative 3 doesn't work. Negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. And negative 8 times negative 1 is positive 8. Now we combine, and we're looking for negative 6. So negative 1 minus 8 is negative 9. That doesn't work. Negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. That works. So our factors are x minus 2, x minus 4. Okay. So now we set each of these equal to 0. So x minus 2 equal to 0 and x minus 4 equal to 0. So that's x equals 2 and x equals 4. Okay, now we need to check. And let's check x equals 2 first. Okay, so to check, we substitute this number into the equation. So that's 2 plus 8 divided by 2 equals 6. Well, that's 2 plus 4, which equals 6. Well, we know 2 plus 4 is 6, so that checks. So now let's check x equals 4. Okay, so we substitute 4 in, so that's 4 plus 8 divided by 4 equals 6. Well, that's 4 plus 2 equals 6. That's correct, so it checks. So your answers are x equals 2 and x equals 4. There we go. All right, now let's take a look at example 2. Okay, now the first step is you need to multiply everything by the common denominator. Well, the common denominator here is x minus 3, so we need to multiply everything by x minus 3. Okay, so then that's 3x times x minus 3 divided by x minus 3 equals 2x plus 3 times x minus 3 divided by x minus 3. Okay, well, anything divided by itself is 1, so that's 1, that's 1. So you're left with 3x equals 2x plus 3. Now you're going to subtract 2x from both sides, so that's 1x equals 3. Okay, now we need to check. And the sun is coming in quite bright. Let me just block the sun a little bit in a few minutes. Oh, because it got dark, but then I can add some light. And there we go. All right, so now let's check. Now that we've blocked the sun, let's go ahead and check example number 2. Okay, so we're going to check x equals 3. So we're going to plug 3 in. Now, one of the things you could do, instead of trying to write it all on one line, is do the left side and the right side. So we're going to do 3 times 3 divided by 3 minus 3. Well, that's 9 divided by 0. And let's look at the right side. So it's 2 times 3 plus 3 divided by 3 minus 3. Well, that's 6 plus 3 is 9 divided by 0. They're the same. It checks, but there's something unique about this. In that 9 divided by 0 is undefined. So for 2 reasons, they're both equal to 9 divided by 0, and the other reason is undefined. We said x equals 3 is an extraneous solution. Okay, so go ahead and finish up example 2. All right, now let's take a look at example 3. Now I start, all right, I keep playing with the light here, but the sun is a very difficult star to work with. All right, example 3. All right, and wait a minute. All right, I apologize, but that crazy sun is messing with the light in the video. Okay, all right, so here we need to multiply everything by the common denominator. Well, the common denominator is to multiply all the denominators together. Well, 2 times x minus 7 is 2 times x minus 7 is your common denominator. Okay, so we need to multiply everything by that. All right, so then that's 2x minus 9 times 2 times x minus 7 divided by x minus 7. Okay, plus x times 2 times x minus 7 divided by 2 equals, and I'm going to have to steal some space from the check space, equals 5. Let's just do this. 5 times 2 is 10, so it's 10 times x minus 7 divided by x minus 7. Okay, now if you do this correctly, all the fractions go away. So this divides and becomes 1, this divides and becomes 1, that divides and becomes 1. So now we multiply everything here by 2. So 2 times 2x is 4x, minus 9 times 2 is 18, plus x times x is x squared. X times negative 7 is negative 7x equals to 10. Okay, now we need to move everything to the outside. So we're going to subtract 10 from both sides. And then that's x squared. Combine 4x minus 7x is minus 3x. And then when you subtract negative 18 from 10, that's minus 28 equals 0. Now we're going to solve by factoring, so we know 2 parentheses equal to 0. We know x and x makes x squared. Okay, now we need to find all the combinations that make multiply be negative 28 combined to be negative 3. So we know negative 1 times 28 is negative 28. Negative 2 times 14 is negative 28. And one of the things you might do is combine as you multiply. So we know negative 1 plus 28 is 27. That doesn't work. Negative 2 plus 14 is 12. That doesn't work. Remember, our goal is negative 3. So negative 3 doesn't work. Negative 4 times 7 is negative 28. Negative 4 plus 7 is 3. We got the 3, so we just changed the sign. So we know 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. 4 minus 7 is negative 3. That works. So our factors are x plus 4, x minus 7. So we set these equal to 0. So x plus 4 equal to 0, and x minus 7 equal to 0. So subtract 4, x equals negative 4, and add 7, x equals 7. Okay? So now we need to check. X equals 7, and x equals negative 4. Now, because this is so long, I don't expect you to put all of that on your paper. I would just use your calculator to check that. So what I would do, and let me adjust the lighting here on this, okay, is I'm going to go to calculator. Okay, let's clear out whatever all that was. And then we're going to do control divide. 2 times, let's check 7 first. Times 7 minus 9 divided by 7 minus 7. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry, let's check the negative 4 first. And what happened with all the brightness? There we go. I'll tell you, lighting is the enemy of making videos. So 2 times negative 4 minus 9 divided by negative 4 minus 7. That's the right. Plus control divide. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 5 divided by 11. Okay, now let's do the right side. So control divide. 5 divided by negative 4 minus 7 is negative 5 divided by 11. So x equals negative 4 checks. That's the solution. Okay. So now let's check x equals 7. So control divide. 2 times 7 minus 9 divided by 7 minus 7. You stop there. We don't even care if the left side equals the right side because we have undefined. Okay? Since it's undefined, we know that this is an extraneous solution. Okay? All right, let's take a look at example 4. Okay? Now, this one's unique in that we need to factor the numerator or denominator here. Well, we know that's the difference of squares, so we can write that as x minus 4 times x plus 4. Okay? Which means our common denominator is x minus 4 times x plus 4. That might be a little hard to see, so let me write it right here. So x squared, we know x squared minus 16 is equivalent to x minus 4 times x plus 4. Okay, so we know we're multiplying everything by x minus 4, x plus 4. So that's 16 times x minus 4 times x plus 4 divided by, we know that x squared minus 16 is the same as x minus 4, x plus 4 equals 2 times x minus 4, x plus 4 divided by x minus 4. Well, if you do this correctly, then everything divides and becomes 1. So that divides and becomes 1, divides and becomes 1, divides and becomes 1. Fractions are gone. You're left with 16 equals 2 times x plus 4, which is equal to 2x plus 8. And then solve for x. So we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. You get 8 equals 2x. Divide both sides by 2, so x equals 4. Now, we need to check. So we're going to check x equals 4. So that's 16 divided by 4 squared minus 16, which equals 16 divided by 0, which we can stop there because 16 divided by 0 is undefined. So we know that this is an extraneous solution. Okay, go and finish up example 4. All right, let's take a look at example 5. Okay, so here, wow, this looks like a crazy problem. Example 5. Now, we need to factor x squared minus 7x plus 10 first, okay? So to do that, we know 2 parentheses. We know x and x makes x squared. Now, if you think about what two numbers multiply to give you 10 combined to be negative 7, the answer to that is x minus 5, x minus 2. Okay? So we probably want to rewrite this as 1 divided by x minus 2. Now, we need to multiply everything by the common denominator, which is x minus 5, x minus 2. So that's times, and we can actually put that on the numerator and rewrite it as x minus 2 times x minus 5. And the reason why we're going to reorder it so that we have the x minus 2 divided by x minus 2 plus, this is x, and we can just rewrite this as x minus 2, x minus 5, divided by, we know that this factors to be x minus 2, x minus 5, equals, we're going to have to steal space from the check, 6 times x minus 2, x minus 5, divided by x minus 2. Okay? So now we're going to divide, so that divides and becomes 1, divides and becomes 1, divides and becomes 1. Okay? So then you're left with x minus 5 plus, well, that's just all 1, plus 1, equals, now we distribute the 6, so it's 6x minus 30. Okay? So now we're going to combine terms here. Negative 5 and 1 is negative 4, so you get 1x minus 4 equals 6x minus 30. Let's subtract 1x from both sides and add 30 to both sides. Well, that cancels. You're left with 26 equals 5x. Divide both sides by 5. So 26 divided by 5, control enter, is 5.2. Okay? And there we go, brighten the screen a little bit. So x equals 5.2. All right, now we need to check. And again, for a problem like this, I don't expect you to write all of that into the space, so let's just use a calculator, okay? All right, let's clear this out. Okay, so then that's control divide 1 divided by 5.2 minus 2 plus control divide 1 divided by 5.2 squared minus 7 times 5.2 plus 10. Okay, and now we're going to do control divide. Let's do the right side. 6 divided by 5.2 minus 2. You see that these, slid there. You see that these are the same, so it checks. So your answer is x equals 5.2. All right, last example. Okay, example 6. Now, here, let's factor x squared plus x. We know that if you factor out an x, that becomes x times x plus 1. So we know we're going to multiply everything times x plus 1. Okay, so then that is x plus 5 times x plus 1 divided by x times x plus 1 equals x times x plus 1 divided by x times x plus 1 minus x minus 6 times x times x plus 1 divided by x plus 1. Okay, so now this divides and becomes 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So you're left with x plus 5 equals 1 minus x squared minus 6x. Now, what we need to do is move everything to one side. So we're going to add x squared to both sides. Okay, we're going to add the 6x to both sides. So 1x plus 6x is 7x. And then we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. So 5 minus 1 is plus 4, equal to 0. Okay, now we're going to factor 2 parentheses, 0. So we know x and x makes x squared. Okay, now we need to find all the combinations that combine to be 4. And let me check something. I think my math might be wrong. Let me double check here. So we have x plus 5 equals 1 minus x squared. This is where I made a mistake. Negative times a negative is a positive 6x. And the reason why, and I've kind of got to make a mistake sometimes, and it's good I make mistakes sometimes because I can show you how you correct yourself. I realized that this wasn't going to be factorable. And that made me question, well, did I make a mistake? And in fact, that shows me I did, because now with a positive 6x, we subtract 6x from both sides, and this is a negative 5x. Okay. Now that makes a lot more sense. Now we need to find all the combinations to be 4, multiply to be 4, combined to be negative 5. Well, real simple. Negative 1 times negative 4 is a positive 4. Negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. So our factors are x minus 1, x minus 4. Okay. So then you set those equal to 0. X minus 1 equal to 0. And x minus 4 equal to 0. So x equals 1, x equals and let's check. So we're going to check x equals 1, x equals 4. Okay, so to do that, we're going to use our calculator. Okay, so we're going to do control divide 1 plus 5 divided by 1 squared plus 1. Okay, so that's 3. Now control divide, let's do the right side. 1 divided by 1 squared plus 1, click to the right, minus control divide 1 minus 6 divided by 1 plus 1 is 3. So 3 equals 3. So x equals 1 checks. Okay. Now, one thing you can do is just highlight, press enter, and change the 1 to a 4. So everywhere there's a 1, that's a 4. That's a 4. That's a 4. Okay, and then you can highlight here and change wherever there's a 1 to a 4. So 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. Now, you'll notice something that it doesn't check. And when it doesn't, one of the things you might do just to be safe is you might think, well, maybe I made a mistake. So maybe highlighting and entering didn't work. So what I would recommend doing is go back and just actually type it in. So control divide 4 plus 5 divided by 4 squared plus 4. Okay. And then we're going to do control divide 1 divided by 4 squared plus 4, click to the right, minus control divide 4 minus 6 divided by 4 plus 1. And you can see that, in fact, it's does check. So what I'm showing you here is you might go back and check your work sometimes if you think, well, maybe that's not correct, or just check them all the time just to verify. So, but in fact, this does check, so x equals 4. Okay, so with that, if you would, go and finish up your examples and start working on your assignment and have a wonderful Wildcat